don't cry. It was a normal Saturday night. All the family was over and we were playing darts in the shed, having a few beers. We were all just killing some time before we went to the club to go see if any of us won the $900 draw. We didn't. When we were there, that's when my mum started complaining about a headache. We didn't really think much of it because she was drinking the night before. So I was just like, oh, you know, it was probably just her hangover kicking in. So we get home and we're in the shed talking, and she asks my dad to go get her some Panadol because she still has a headache. Almost as soon as she swallowed the pills, her face just immediately dropped. I started freaking out. I was the first one to see it because we were in mid-conversation before her face dropped, her speech slurred. And then I started freaking out. I started yelling and telling everyone, I think my mum's having a stroke. If you know my mum, you know that she's allergic to basically everything. So like the sunblock, mosquito bites, food, animals, fur, you know, everything. So everyone automatically thought, you know, she's having an allergic reaction, we'll go get her some antihistamines. And see, I've witnessed my mum have, I don't know, like maybe like over 50, maybe even 100 allergic reactions before. So I knew that that wasn't what was happening. I have been in hospitals enough that I have read basically every single post-it that they have on the walls of any doctor's office, waiting room, EDs, ward rooms. Like, I have read them. I knew it was a stroke. I felt like nobody was listening to me, so I tried to run inside looking around for a phone. When I got inside, my sister and her partner were inside. At this point, I was like hysterically crying. I didn't know what to do. I just remember screaming, Mum's having a stroke, you need to call for an ambulance. They call an ambulance and it's like, they said they're like 10 minutes away. We literally live like less than 5 minutes away from the hospital. So that 10 minutes literally felt like hours. I see all the kids standing in the corner of the window looking outside, watching everything happen, and all the adults freaking out and listening to me freak out. So I tried to console them, tell them everything was going to be okay. You just have to do that, even if you don't believe it yourself. You just have to tell, you know, little children that everything's okay. They calm down a little bit. I went back outside to go see how my mum was, to go see, you know, how my dad was. If you know my parents, you know the love they have for each other. It's kind of that gross romantic love that you see in like movies and that you wish for when you get older. The kind of adoration that my dad has for my mum, it's a little bit sickening. And I think I'm only saying that because I'm the kid and then, you know, but when I looked at my dad's face, I saw in his eyes his heart breaking. Breaking because it's the love of his life. Breaking because he doesn't know what's happening. Breaking because he's scared. But most of all, breaking because the fear that he has that he cannot help. After I saw that hurt in his eyes, I knew I kind of had to suck it up and get it together. Because if anyone deserved to break more, it was him. My mum and dad are literally each other's other half. They both have, like, within each other, the other, I guess, abilities to even each other out. So it was hard to see that. The ambulance came and we went to the hospital. My dad went in the ambulance and I'm not really sure on how I got there. All of that was a blur. I don't really remember walking into the hospital. I just remember walking into her room. We were in ED. So A&E, whatever you want to call it. The doctors confirmed that it was a stroke. They also said to us the kind of stroke that she had would have happened because of a car crash or some kind of damage caused around her throat, like some major whiplash. She didn't have any car crashes. Almost 5 years prior, she was attacked and strangled. We asked if something that happened so far back would have been the possibility and the result of the stroke. They said to us, yes. They said to us that the cause of the strangulation could have irritated her artery enough to cause a small lesion. So then, they also said that the small little tear it would have caused, if it did not heal, it would have just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And they said that's how her stroke was caused. So as it was trying to heal itself, it was still getting bigger over the years, and the clots formed to try and block off that hole so none of her blood would leak out. And that's just the body trying to heal itself. The hole, as it got bigger, the clots weren't doing its job, so it was getting pushed by the flow of the blood, and that clot was pushed into her brain. It was a drug that was fairly new. They've tried all the other drugs that were standard to patients with strokes, and they didn't work. They wanted to try a stronger one. They needed our consent for this and for us to sign a paper. Well, my dad too. He didn't really know what to do, so we all talked weighed out the pros and the cons, and the fact that this was what the doctors were saying to us, kind of the only chance, without having to do anything more invasive as surgery. So they said to us that this drug had not been used enough to give us kind of a 100% answer, but it was the only thing that they could offer other than surgery. So we talked about it, and we said do it. About an hour, maybe 30 minutes later, the doctors came back and they said to us it didn't work because the medication had just leaked out the side. Some of it reached the clot and dissolved it enough, but not enough for her to be out of the woods. I think the hardest part of that night was looking at her and knowing that you needed to be comforted by your mother, but knowing that you couldn't be. If you've ever been through anything traumatic or a loss, or just you've had to go through where the only thing that kind of makes you feel a little bit better is maybe a hug from your mum, or maybe your mum just saying to you everything's going to be okay, just some comforting words, and then knowing you can't have that. So it was hard to watch her lying in bed, unconscious, unaware to what was happening to her. They moved us to CCU, or the critical care unit. We were in there for about 3 days. Those 3 days were kind of like an adjustment to kind of what was coming. An adjustment to, I guess, a new life. A life where the dependency of someone you've depended on your whole entire life was now flipped. After the 3 days in CCU, they moved us to a ward. We were really positive hearing that we were getting moved to a ward, just because we heard that in the ward, the stroke ward, that's when you can start doing physio and rehabilitation. So we thought, awesome, we're at that level where we can start rehabilitating. I have never been affected by anyone who's had a stroke before. I've obviously seen like physical changes in people with stroke, but I've never had to, I guess, know the full details and outcomes of the journey. So I wasn't sure if it was, a couple weeks, a couple months. I didn't really expect it to be as long as I had thought. I did hear all the doctors, nurses, physiotherapists, helpers, assistants, and everyone, literally everybody on that ward tell me that it's such a long journey. But for me, it wasn't registering. Like, I knew it was going to be a long journey, but I never knew how long. When we moved to the ward, she wasn't quite ready to start any rehab. She was just moved to the ward because she no longer had to be watched 24/7. It's almost been a year now, and it hasn't really gotten any easier. I guess maybe in some areas it has been, but not all. So you just gotta keep telling yourself it's gonna take time. Seeing little minor improvements are very big victories. And that's really all you've got to try and focus on.